Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode, I'm joined by the actor and the singer, the X Factor winner himself, Shayne Ward. This is a guy I've wanted to have on the podcast for a while, and the interview came about because I was lucky enough to go on set of Tom Payton's latest film, The Ascent. But if you're American and you're listening right now, the film over there is called Black Ops. It's an absolute awesome film, and I'm not just saying that because I'm actually in the film, I'm credited. Yes, that's me. The film is amazing. I think Tom Payton, and I've said it before since he's been on the podcast, is one of the most upcoming directors out there right now making films. I think he's going to be absolutely huge. He's the hardest working guy I know. He's so dedicated, and he was just an absolute pleasure to have on the podcast. And we talked about Redwood and Black State back then, but in that time he's gone and done this brand new film, and I think The Ascent is absolutely brilliant. If you don't trust me or you want to check it out, go on Sky Store, iTunes, Amazon, the PlayStation Store, all those sorts of things. Or also you can check it out on the Bird Box channel. Just Google that and you can watch the film. But yeah, you won't regret it. But in true typical Mark and Me fashion, I do like to touch base about the last episode. It wasn't that long ago, and I was joined by Jen from the amazing band False Advertising. It was such a great interview. I saw so many comments about how true and how honest she was, how down to earth, and I've even seen people go and purchase the album Brain Freeze since. Some people have got the sexy little vinyl, some people have got the CD, but I just want to say thank you to everyone that listened to the interview, and even more thanks to the people then that went on Spotify and listened to the band and then actually invested their money in something like a CD or an album or a t-shirt. That's what we need to do, support these bands, especially at these hard times. But let's get back into today's episode. I'm joined by Shayne Ward, someone I've got a lot of respect for. I loved his work in Coronation Street. I thought his portrayal of the character was amazing, especially towards the end. I don't want to spoil it for people that, are 10 years behind and want to play catch up on Coronation Street. But his actual depression and the way he was towards the end and his suicide in there was so well done. He's an incredible singer. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to see him in The Ascent. He's absolutely awesome, steals the film. But I think it's best now to talk about the actual interview itself. So let's get to it. Here's me and Shayne Ward. Okay, Shayne, so thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Absolute pleasure, man.
What I want to do for the listeners out there, obviously they'll know you for various different things in acting, in TV, in film, in singing, but I want to take it back to the start and know what it was you actually wanted to be when you were growing up as a kid.
For me, I've just always been around music. As a young kid, coming from an Irish family, there was always Irish music playing, country music playing naturally, and just the great, obviously, pop music around that time. So yeah, growing up in a household of 7 children, there was always something playing in each of the rooms. So yeah, I always knew I was going to do something with singing because it was just always in me. It always gave me such joy, and yeah. So I always knew I was going to pursue something with music, definitely.
And what were the albums that your kind of family were listening to when you were a kid in the house that influenced the sort of bands and the music and the artists you are now?
Geez, it's such a collective of music. It was anything from typically tropical, which is Barbados. You could have Queen songs. You'd have everything from Kenny Rogers to Tammy Wynette. You'd have Elvis Presley. Of course, all the Irish songs, Foster and Allen, the Fureys. It was, honest to God, it was just such a vast array of music. I used to love songs back in the day as well, like from Anna Lennox, like No More I Love Yous and things like that. So yeah, there was a lot of different songs I grew up to. Sacrifice was one of my favourites growing up by Elton John.
Amazing. And at what point did you think to yourself, I can actually take this seriously and want to do singing instead of it just being something you're doing in the shower?
Well, I used to always enjoy going down to my local pub. Some of my sisters would go in there, my sister Lisa and Emma, and there'd always be karaoke on every Sunday. And these were the days when people used to actually go out Friday, Saturday and Sunday and not worry about it, whereas people now don't go out Sunday at all. So, yeah, there was always great karaoke on, and you used to get a lot of great compliments. And then every now and again, my sister Lisa would ring me up and say, come on, people are asking for you to come down. And I was like, who? Just people in the pub that want you to sing. And I at the time, I didn't understand why. I just thought, okay. So I'd come down, and then, let's say maybe I get a couple of months later, I met 2 of my closest friends now who are godmothers to my daughter Willow. They're called Tracy Murphy and Tracy Lyle. And they've been on the circuit for like over 20 years, and they asked me to join the band, and I joined them when I was 15. So I did like the working men's club for about 5-6 years before I went to the X Factor. So that's where I learned my craft. And if you can't survive in a working men's club, then you've got no chance. But yeah, that's where I started off, and I started also to learn new ways of singing, harmonies, and that's when I started to take it more serious.
Did you have any actual official singing lessons, or did you learn from a friend, or how did it become that you actually learnt the new techniques?
Do you know, I never had any lessons back in the day. I only ever heard of a vocal coach when I went into X Factor, when we would all have our sessions during the week. But back in the day, it was just listening to the girls, and obviously, because we was a vocal harmony trio, and we toured up and down the UK, Scotland, Wales, and also went to Germany in the army barracks and everything. So it was a long time for me to really learn different parts of my voice, and also some of my favourite singers, like from the Stylistics and the Bee Gees, those type of harmonies. I'm all about harmonies, so I'd listen to them, I'd mimic them, and that's how I learned to harmonise.
And then obviously everyone knows now that you won the X Factor. What was it that kind of got you into it? Who was it that said, look, let's try and take this to the next level?
It was my sister Lisa, my eldest sister. She said, look, I've applied for the X Factor. And it all happened because, let's say the year before, as the X Factor was finishing, there was a song out at the time, and it was brand new, and it was Daniel Bedingfield's If You're Not the One. And it's a memory that sticks out in her head. I was singing along to it, and it's got the big, lovely falsetto in his voice, and I was doing the falsetto. To a lot of people, that's the high notes. And she walked past me and said, can you hit that note? And I said, yeah. And she says, well, hit it then. And I hit it, and then before I knew it, she applied for me to go on next year's.
So you actually had no idea she kind of submitted an application for you, and then it was too late?
Exactly, yeah. She said, no, I've put you in. And it was great. And then, strangely enough, I was actually on holiday, and I actually missed, not on purpose, but just because of the date, I didn't get the letter through. And I actually missed the date of my audition. So when it kind of came through late, and I seen it, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be on holiday by then. So I rang them up, and it was like, yeah, we've got an open day the next day. So I flew back and actually auditioned on the open day. So it's crazy because it's like, I absolutely believe that everything happens for a reason.
And then obviously, I know it's a few years ago now, but can you still remember that night that you kind of announced? Does it actually ever feel real, or is it kind of still like one of those things that's just too hard to try and describe?
Oh no, it was incredible. I'll always remember that night. It was so, just everything was heightened. It was just full of emotion. I was battling against a great singer, Andy Abraham, and it was such a cracking final, and it was so close. And yeah, I just remember walking on. It was myself, Louis Walsh, Sharon Osbourne, and Andy Abraham, all holding hands. And when Kate Thornton read out my name, it was honestly one of the most surreal moments of my life, because yeah, at that moment it doesn't feel real. It feels like it's just like fantasy, and like, just even looking back now, it was like it was in a movie. I think a lot of people will probably agree with me. It never feels real in that moment, but yeah, she said my name, and then before I knew it, boom, I'm straight into the limelight, and I had absolutely everything kind of like planned out in terms of going on Top of the Pops the next morning. And then basically just going on a massive promo tour for That's My Goal, because at the time it was Christmas.
Yeah.
So naturally we was heading for the Christmas #1, which it got.
Considering your sister sent off your application, I just can't imagine what her reaction must have been like.
Oh, they was absolutely ecstatic with it, because they've always believed in my voice, and it was always telling me that, that they always believed that I could make it. And hearing that as a young kid, it was always nice, but naturally, you only ever look at the people on the television. You never really consider yourself to be one of them in the future. But it's great now, because like fast forward 15 years later, and where my vocal is at now, because a lot of people don't know, but not long after winning the X Factor, I remember it was actually the next morning I went to Harley Street, because I knew I'd done something to my throat, because there was a deal that went on with X Factor. Like, if you went out the show, you got voted out, you would perform at Club GAY. And it was the same for the win. So after the show, after the X Factor, I won the show, I did a press conference, and then I went down and performed the GAY. I was so excited. I knew that I had Top of the Pops Christmas special the next morning. But I knew I did something to my throat, so I went to Harley Street, and the doctor told me that I had nodules, and I'd never heard them before, so I naturally panicked. And yeah, so I had to do obviously my first album. It was an absolute struggle, but I did it on cortisone injections. And literally, a lot of people don't know that, but you hear it a lot more common now with singers like Adele. This song, like, I think Rod Stewart's got nodules, but I don't think it hinders him. But it basically stopped me having my falsetto for a little while. So I'm very blessed in a sense, because I went to America with my tour manager, Paul Higgins, and we was out there for some time. And I met with a surgeon called Dr. Cantor, and his surgery was more like a record label, because he had like discs on his wall from White Snake and everything. You can obviously, these are the people that he's done operations on before. And I just said, be honest with me, and he was like, do you know what, Shayne, it's 50-50. And I thought, well, I've got to take a chance. So he cut my nodules, and I'm to this day very, very obviously honoured that he did that, because I'm blessed in a sense, because you're not ever guaranteed to get any of your voice back, but I've got it back as much as I can. And this was actually the surgeon that was meant to do Julie Andrews' operation on her throat years ago. So
wow.
It was crazy when he was telling me the story, because I think she had hers lasered off. Because there was a procedure which is lasered or cut off, and I had mine cut off. And yeah, it's just crazy. So I'm so happy that I'm blessed that I've got as much of my voice back as I can. And 15 years later, it helped me find different parts of my voice when I never had my falsetto. So it's made me more confident now in the studio to try different things and go down different genres. And that really excites me, not just for myself, but hopefully for the fans, because I know that I can cover so many different styles, and someone out there will like it, because not everyone's going to like everything that you do.
No.
But I was 21 at the time. I'm now 35, and I just feel in a much better place. And yeah, I'm looking after my voice a lot more, and my falsetto's back. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
I actually can't believe it's 15 years. That's insane.
I know. Where does it go, eh?
So, skip a few years, obviously, then you got into acting. What was it that kind of made you want to give that a go?
I always wanted to do something with acting, especially when I was doing the music videos. The thing about music videos as well, to me, they can be just as important as the song itself, because visually is what grips people. And so yeah, I mean, with mine, naturally, there was a couple of them where I had to naturally kiss a girl. That's not a hard thing to do, but I had to sell it. It's not just as easy as just turning up, like singing a song to kissing a girl. You have to sell it even in a relationship, and that's one of the ways I was like, I have a feeling that I'd like to just try to like get into acting, but I never did around that time. And then, but I always felt in my gut again. I always think, trust your gut in life, because the worst you can get is a no. But the acting job at Coronation Street, how that came about was there was a character at the time in the soap who was a bad boy called Callum, and a lot of people on social media were congratulating me and direct messaging me and saying, "Well done on your new role in Coronation Street." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "What are you on about?"
Yeah.
And I actually looked at his name and searched obviously his character's name, and then it came up as Shayne Ward. I was like, I get it. Yeah, I can understand the confusion. It's literally such a simple mistake, because people call me Shayne all the time anyway. And because there was a nice little bit of momentum built up by fan base of Coronation Street and of mine, they contacted my management and just asked, would Shayne like to come in for an audition? And that's literally where it went from there. And I went down there and did my audition and waited about 3 or 4 weeks, and got the job as Aidan Connor. They wrote me the part. So it was crazy. 6 months contract turned into 3 years, and ended on an incredible storyline. So yeah, honoured to be part of that show.
And I'm sure you get this question a lot, but towards the end, when it was the kind of the dark days of the suicide and everything, and the depression and stuff, how did you even kind of mentally prepare to do those scenes? Because they were very convincing, and it can't have been easy to kind of portray that.
Thank you, man. It's never easy, because you know that what you are doing, there's millions of people out there facing that truth. And it was scary for us all as a team, because we knew what we were putting out had to be handled so delicately, and we worked closely with the charities like calm mind and the Samaritans, and also spoke to families, people who've been through, obviously experienced someone going through it, whether it be a family member or a friend. And we just knew, that when we put it out, the next step is how the public is going to react to it. But they just responded so well, and we were just so happy that, I was honoured that I was even handed that particular storyline, and that I agreed to do it. Because, it's about, to tackle that taboo. It's a scary truth, isn't it? Because it's still happening. It's not going to be something that's going to stop anytime soon, but we're just trying to get as many men just trying to speak up, because it's not as easy just to speak and for us to go on, talk to someone. Just know that there's a lot of people out there who are just willing to listen, and if that's a step for them to speak up, then know that you're not going to be judged. But we use that platform, and I'm very, very proud of that storyline. But it's a scary place to go.
One of my friends who's been on the show previously, Tom Payton, I think is one of the best British up-and-coming directors out there. I think his work rate and his work ethic is unbelievable, and in a few years' time, people will be like, wow, Tom Payton, I didn't realise you knew him. Can you remember the first time you met him and kind of discuss the idea of working together?
Yeah, so the first time I met Tom was actually through my partner, Sophie Austin, who's also in the film as well. And she's an actress who has done several things like Hollyoaks and Call the Midwife, and she was also in Tina and Bobby, about Bobby Moore. And it was her agent actually was just saying, there's this great director, you should maybe go down. There's an award show in London. I can introduce you. And it was literally that. We went down, and he won that night. I think it was called Redwood.
Yep, the horror, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he won that night, and one or two of his actors had won as well. And the only information I got was he'll be sat at table such and such. So I just walked over to a table in a suit and just went, anyone here called Tom? He probably felt intimidating, to be honest. He was like, are you Shayne? I said, yeah. And just since then, we just said, listen, let's me and my partner, Sophie, meet up, have a chat about the possibility of maybe doing something together. And the conversation just flowed. We went and had a lovely afternoon tea with him, and it was great. It was just great. And that was it, to be honest. And fast forward, we ended up doing Stairs, which is obviously now the Ascent, and in America, Black Ops. So very pleased with it, man. Working with Tom it's brilliant, because I can see how hungry he is and how creative he is, and I'm exactly the same. And it's nice when you feel like you can bounce off someone else's energy. So he's definitely one to watch.
And kind of going from like working with ITV and Coronation Street on such a big production with so many people involved in the crew. I was on set for this. I'm actually in the film as well, only a little part. But what was it like kind of seeing it all working firsthand on a much lower budget and still producing such a great film?
Well, it's exciting, isn't it? Because you know that, for such a small budget, to actually, because you'd have seen it now, the trailers out there.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. From him and George Burt, and just what they've created is incredible on such a short. I think that's what one of the things that's going to blow a lot of people away, other than basically all the explosions that happen. Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It really is going to blow them away, because they'll be like, that was done on that budget, really? The guys are so creative, and the great thing about it is that it is a great story. It's a hidden message, and it's such a clever film. And Tom had it absolutely all thought out, and he lets you be creative as well. That's what I like about it. He knows what he wants, but he also allows you to bring something to the table. So I absolutely love that he gave me the role as Will Stanton. And I absolutely loved playing him. I absolutely loved being as tough as anything and giving orders. It was good.
And now, obviously, you've worked with Tom. I believe you've been working on another film. Is that right?
Yeah. So I also worked on Tom's last film. I know it was not 400 Bullets, but the one before was G-Lock.
Yeah.
And I got to work alongside John Rhys-Davies, who is just a phenomenal actor, and people will know him from such incredible films like Indiana Jones and Lord of the Rings, Stephen Moyer. It was great. So I'm very excited for people to see that as well, and it's good for me now. I guess one of the things you can take away from this lockdown is that you're going to get a lot more people engaged in what's actually going on television or streaming.
Yeah.
I mean, naturally for casting directors as well, because it's difficult because for them, you know, we're all kind of naturally waiting by the phone, but there's no point really because they don't know when they can, you know, send scripts to people, etc. So when we have a body of work that's already been done and coming out, it excites us all. So, you know, I'm excited about the premiere tonight because I know there'll be a few casting people watching, so they'll see a complete difference from Aidan Connor to Will Stanton.
And now that you've done these films, have you kind of got a taste for doing more? I'm sure with the way Tom works with sort of 2 or 3 films a year, do you want to do more movies? I mean, you've done TV, you've done singing. Have you got a taste to kind of do more of these productions?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely got the hunger. I'm finding this great little balance now with the music. I'm going to be releasing new music pretty soon. And of course, yeah, I'm keeping myself in shape. I want to be camera ready. I definitely want to obviously pursue as well a lot more close combat. And I've worked with Darren on the film, him and Spencer. They were fantastic and so great with me, knowing that I didn't have any training background in terms of close combat. And they worked their absolute magic on me, and hopefully that comes across in the film. So I'd like to pursue that as well. So I know that I can add that, you know, to my resume. That if a film comes up, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally ready for it. Whether it would be action, whether it would be just anything really, anything that's gripping.
The thing is now, though, Shayne, obviously you're a husband, you've got kids, you've done singing, you're returning to singing with new music, you're doing films. When do you sleep? When do you get time to actually switch off and do normal things?
That's a good point because my little girl wakes me up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I absolutely adore it.
Yeah,
that's one of the best things about being home all the time. Actually, is because when we're away working, we just have that little bit of a moan to ourselves. Not because we're ungrateful, because we're so grateful at what we're doing, but just the missing element of missing my little girl and my family. Whereas now, we'll never get this time back again. You know, so I probably go to bed about near probably midnight most nights, and I'm up at 5 o'clock. So I have probably about 4.5 hours sleep, nearly 5, because I always hear these little footsteps coming towards me. That's all I need, to be honest, when she runs in the room.
And at the moment, with all this stuff happening, are there still things that you want to achieve? I mean, you've done a hell of a lot for your age, but are there still things that you really... Is there something completely out of this that you think, do you know what, I need to do that before I retire?
Yeah, well, do you know what? Yeah, I mean, I want to go on as long as I possibly can. And I think for me, I mean, I'm just excited that this film's coming out because I want to show a different string to my bow, me playing a completely different character. And I'd love people to see that, you know, that I can take risks. And yeah, I think for me, it's just to be in a lot more. I'd love to be in a drama, whether it be BBC or ITV. I'd love to be in a gripping drama.
Yeah.
That's something that is I put out into the universe, and I believe everything happens for a reason. And just keep putting positive vibes. So definitely that. And on the singing front, for me, yeah, I mean, my one of my goals that I would love to achieve again is basically to get re-signed. And I know a lot of people say you don't need to because I'm established, and I appreciate that. But you know, I've got it in me that that everything comes full circle. I'm going to work my hardest, and I'd love to get re-signed by a label.
That sounds amazing. Some exciting times ahead. One thing I always ask every guest that comes on the show if they're a musician, a director, an actor, but there's such a tough world to get in, and especially with all this now with the lockdown. But what advice do you give to either someone that wants to be a singer or wants to be an actor? Because the way the world's streaming now, all the music, and people aren't buying these. What advice do you give who's kind of come from nothing to, you know, winning the X Factor and now doing acting and being on TV? What do you do to kind of keep yourself above everyone else?
Well, do you know what? The good thing about fast forwarding to today is that, I mean, well, going back in the day, you'd have to physically go around with your CD.
Yeah.
You know, to and stuff like that. You try and get a self-tape done. Whereas you're right, with social media now and all the streaming, you can get noticed like that. It just takes one person to see you on TikTok. It takes one person to see you on YouTube, because I know that's what happened with Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
You know, little things like that. So actually, you've probably got a much better chance now. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's probably millions and millions of videos of people singing and acting, but one person will get, you know what I mean, that lucky break. So for me, I think in this day and age, you've just got to absolutely go for it. You know, don't listen to the naysayers. Don't ever listen to anyone saying you've got to stay in your lane. If you trust your gut, if you believe in your ability, believe in it 100% and just go for it, because the worst you can get in life is a no, because the next thing you'll get is a yes. Simple.
I want to thank you for your time today, Shayne, and I wish you all the luck, and I can't wait to sit down tonight with some popcorn, watch this film, and show the world basically that, you're not the guy from Coronation Street. You can hold a gun and really fucking look at a force. And my mum and dad watched me have my head blown off, so it should be quite a good evening.
Thanks a lot, dude. Good
Take
luck,
care. Bye now. So there it is. There's my interview with me and Shayne. What a great guy. Really down to earth. Really grounded. And I think considering the career he's had so far in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, he's not done. He's got so much more up his sleeve. He's doing new music. I can see him doing a lot more films. It's great that he's doing more work with Tom, who's, in my opinion, one of the best directors out there. It's really exciting. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Shayne for coming on the podcast. As always, everyone, if you've loved today's episode, get on markandme.com. The website's there. It's got links to my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram. Drop me an email. Whatever you want to do, get in contact. I love reading the feedback that you guys provide, especially if you love the episode and want to tell me stuff. I'll always forward it on as well to the people that have been on the show. They really do appreciate reading it. You think, I won't bother. Honestly, when I forward them the feedback, they absolutely love it. So please keep it coming. The podcast is obviously available on Spotify, Podomatic, iTunes. The best way to support the podcast is jump on Mark and Me, because on there you can get onto my Patreon and you can sign up for as little as something like 50p. That's it, a month. You have the opportunity to get podcasts early, you get to win prizes. There's absolutely loads of things on there, but all the money that you invest in the podcast goes straight back into the podcast itself. I don't spend it on myself, I don't buy things. It's all about investing so I get to do more podcasts, more interviews, which means more material for you guys out there. Thanks again to everyone that's checked out the podcast. Like I said, The Ascent is a great film. It's available everywhere right now. There's no excuse why you can't get out there and watch it. I watched it on Amazon, but you can also watch it on the Sky Store. Anywhere you go for your films, check it out. Let me know what you think, and I'll speak to you all again in a couple of weeks' time with a brand new episode. Take care, everyone.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away upon the chimney tops. That's where